Guys and gals, there are over 2.5 million podcasts globally. And of that 2.5 million, less than 39,000 of them are ever consistently posting at the 1 year mark. Ladies and gents, we have made it. The CrossFit Edwards podcast, we've made it. Not only that, but it's our 100th episode. And in this podcast, Dallas and I are going to relive the greatest hits and the greatest bombs and failures of the first 100 episodes. Stick around.
Welcome to the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast, where we hear and learn from our coaches, CrossFitters, and Glen Ed community leaders. Now, here are your hosts, Dallas and Greg.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast, where we do talk with our CFE coaches. We get to chat it up sometimes with some of our CFE CrossFitters and local athletes, and occasionally chat with Glen Ed business owners and leaders. But today we're talking with Coach G himself, because this is happy birthday to CrossFit Edwardsville Podcast. I don't think I can do that. 100 episodes, and we are excited to have you here, everybody. Your co-host, Dallas Armstrong, Coach G, with you as always. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing one, feeling good. How are you doing today, Dallas?
I'm targeting success in every area of my life, and it feels awesome. I love it, and life is good.
Love to hear it, man. Love to hear it. It's been a fun journey with you so far, recording these podcasts.
Over 100 episodes.
A lot of roller coaster moments.
Yeah.
You know, Dallas being the more experienced podcaster, Dallas has more breadth of knowledge. I've been learning a lot as we go along here, and there have been some amazing moments on the podcast, and there have been some complete crashes and burns, mostly my fault as we learn and we've grown here on the podcast. And in this podcast episode, we're actually going to do some of those greatest hits and recap some of our favorite moments, as well as the ones we wish we could redo. Looking back, the things that did not work, and lessons learned.
But the truth is, we did learn the lessons because we were consistently swinging the bat.
Right.
So
I mean, if you think
about our batting average compared to even Major League Baseball players, we're doing okay. We've had a lot more. We've got on base a lot more. You know, we've had a few home runs through this first 100 episodes, but I think we've gotten on base consistently. I'm not even a baseball guy, so the fact that I'm using this metaphor could end up in a train wreck, but I'm excited.
As we look back at the first 100 episodes, the biggest crash and burn, episode 100.
Yeah, that's right. How many times did we strike out? But let's start. Yes. Let's start maybe on the positive side of things. Let's maybe go with our favorite episodes.
Want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Sure. So when I think about my favorite episode, I think about the one where we really just got into like a flow state and everything kind of clicked and it all worked. And it was like the conversation was popping and we were dropping like the most killer knowledge bombs. Yep. And when I think about that podcast, it's definitely the interview of James Hooks. I'm talking about his success story. Learning from him, which if you haven't heard that podcast, you got to go back and listen to it. James, one of the more inspirational figures we've met in our CrossFit community, an amazing transformation story, both physically and mentally, and getting to hang out with him and learn his mindset, his mentality, and what allowed him to completely turn his life around. Man, like I get goosebumps even now just thinking about it.
To re-say the word you used there a few moments ago, it was such a flow conversation. And it definitely made my top 2 guest list was the conversation with James, because that one we didn't want to stop, and we even said to him afterwards, we got to just have you on again soon.
Right, because we knew we were just scratching the surface of what was possible with like the 3 of us behind a microphone. So definitely going to have James on the podcast again in the near future. But while we're on this one, I want to hear from Dallas. What was his favorite podcast?
Well, so like I said, James was in that top thing. I'm going to give kind of a double answer here. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation with Josh McKinney, who is the CEO and founder of Head Nod HQ.
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu there. And the conversation with him was very fun, very easy, and a lot of synergy of thoughts and beliefs around being dads and business owners and entrepreneurs. And it was just, that to me was a very synergistic conversation as well.
Sure.
Thoroughly enjoyed that. And then I have another kind of category underneath, a subcategory of favorites.
Sure.
But how did you feel the conversation with Josh went?
You can tell when somebody has experience speaking on a podcast.
Sure.
And if those may not know, so Josh McKinney, founder of Head Nod HQ, Jiu-Jitsu gym, and a jiu-jitsu gym I'm a part of. Josh is my primary coach, an amazing dude, amazing jiu-jitsu competitor, black belt, also founder and CEO and leader of his organization, which, by the way, there's now multiple locations of Head Nod. But he's also the guy who runs the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu podcast, which has a crazy number of followers, an amazing social media presence. Really cool what he's done with his podcast. He has a lot of the biggest names in the jiu-jitsu world, especially jiu-jitsu YouTubers and influencers. Like, he has them on his podcast, so it's no surprise that his podcast has popped off. But when you're interviewing somebody that has that experience, they can naturally flow in the podcast also. Josh was in his element, and so like we all just like, it was really fun conversation. And if you haven't yet heard it, if you want to hear about like a great application of strength and fitness, a really fascinating origin story about the founding of a gym or the founding of a business, Josh's story is really cool.
And I would say, we've had so many great conversations with our local CrossFitters, so many things where we learned a little bit more about our community, which was really cool. And several other business owners, but yeah, those two particularly stand out in my mind, James and Josh McKinney. The other, I thoroughly enjoy G whenever you come at me and say, hey, I want to talk about the 6 secrets of that, or the 5 mistakes to avoid when entering a gym. Whenever you give me a countdown list, I'm all ears, because I'm like, has he ranked these? Is this the number 1 problem? Or are these just 5 problems, or 5 things you could do, or three tips and tricks? I'm always a fan when we do countdown lists.
I love doing those, and I feel like that's how my mind works, is in terms of lists. And so those are some of the easiest podcasts for me to do, because like it fits in the framework how I think anyway. And hopefully for the audience, it gives the most salient, tangible, easy to understand and implement action steps. So hopefully for the audiences that those podcasts, they lost the weight and they kept it off. The top 3 things that they did. Like, I love doing those podcasts, and I think that our audience loves them too.
Yep, absolutely. But it hasn't all been home runs. We've grounded out a few times. We've struck out a few times, G. So I don't know why I'm sticking with the baseball metaphor, but here we go. Let me pitch it to you. Give me. Hey, see what I did there? Dad joke. Biggest bomb, biggest fail.
Yeah, and we've had
really one singular episode.
Can we narrow it down to just one, Dallas? It's like there have been a few times we had what I thought was a really cool concept that just didn't really work in the format, or the cast of characters that we had on the podcast for the concept didn't work. But when I look back and podcasts that we've recorded where it just like hurts my heart and my soul that it didn't work, the number 1 was Todd Locks of Pride Fitness. That conversation with Todd was so fire. That was a fire conversation. That dude is amazing. He's so fun and so interesting and so different. He has an incredible story to tell when he's telling the background of Pride Fitness and like how they came to be like a real go-to presence for fitness. Like the Alta, like the Godfrey area up there on Wood River. But the problem where things went bad on the podcast, where all kind of came around, was the audio just did not play along. Like the audio would be there for 5 seconds. It would cut out. the audio would be back. We're like, all right, cool. We think we can keep this conversation going. The audio would cut out again.
Yeah.
And it took what was an incredible conversation and just tanked it. It was like the boat was beautiful and it was ready to sail an amazing sea, and it started taking out of water, and there's nothing we could do to save it.
Yep.
And it's sort of thing like, can you invite him back on the podcast? Yes. But I feel like the magic that conversation was,
moments. Yeah,
it would be very hard to recreate those moments. And it kills me, Dallas, to think about that, because it's like this one detail ruins the whole dang thing. So that's what sticks out to me. What about for you? When you think back,
the technical thing definitely was a struggle for that one, because we were finding ourselves distracted too. So enjoying the conversation with him, so distracted by what was happening technically. I'm like literally trying to adjust his levels, and and then we're streaming, and then we freeze, and it just, everything about that one, I was like, oh, we've got ourselves a train wreck, or a shipwreck, to use your metaphor.
Shipwreck.
Or a strike to use.
A strikeout. Yes.
For me,
the bases were loaded, and it was the ninth inning, and just struck out.
There it is.
Left everybody stranded on the bases. The audience out there just hearts.
I think you're good. I think we're good on the baseball metaphor. You nailed it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude, so many hearts were broken that day.
Nothing like rolling a gutter ball. Wait, hold on. Different thing.
Mighty Casey struck out that day, Dallas.
So for me, another one where we tried a format of something, and I was like, oh, there might be something here, was when Coach Jake and I did the game show format with you.
Yeah.
I'm like, boy, did that work? Did it not? Did that translate properly? So that would be one that I'd go, that's worth a revisit potentially.
Yeah.
It's the game show format. But the one for me that really felt like, this isn't going to serve our community at all, is, hate to harken back to the Oscars, but when we talked about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, I personally found that conversation a lot of fun.
Yes.
And I felt like we got to dive into some larger social issues. However, I don't think it served our community that well.
The content felt like an outlier. It was in that moment.
One
on
of
that
these
day,
things is not like the other when you see it in the list of episodes.
Yeah, you're looking at the list of stuff, like one of these things stands out, probably not for the right reasons, because in that moment, on that day, at that time, that's what I wanted to talk with Dallas about, because Dallas is a public speaker. Dallas is a comedian. Dallas knows this format. Dallas has dealt with a-holes in the audience and vice versa, and people getting way too butthurt about whatever. I wanted to get Dallas's hot take, and so I was personally super interested in the content. But I don't think it didn't match what our audience probably wanted to hear.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that one for me was like the it didn't work kind of episode moment. Funny enough, though, our third category is some of our favorite moments to record, like one of the most fun to record. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation because, like, you're right, it was a total hot take. So that conversation sits for me on the shelf of probably the biggest bomb of the 100 episodes, but also still one of the more enjoyable ones to record. Because it was like, we're just talking about a hot topic rather than just necessarily fitness. So,
well, what would you say then, like for you, Dallas, what has been the most fun episode to record thus far, 100 episodes in?
Well, so I've enjoyed so many of our interviews and of our guests, but you and I had a blast talking about what we thought worked and didn't work in the CrossFit Games. I don't know if it was beneficial at all, but getting just to geek out with you about this epic multi-day event that we had just been watching, that was quite a bit of fun.
Awesome. For me, I actually couldn't narrow it down just to one. What I find really fun is when, like, you and I we get super fired up about something and we just talk about whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a particular topic. It could be Will Smith, because I was fascinated hearing Dallas's take on this. For somebody who actually does this, I was fascinated by that. When we do the what would you do scenarios,
Yeah.
I think those are a lot of fun because I get
Those
to
were fun. I forgot about those.
Yeah, like we had a few episodes where we did a what would you do, and we did scenarios like, hey, you put in this like strange position. What do you do? How do you handle that? Like, I think it's fun to kind of think through those things,
Yeah.
even if it's not necessarily super salient to health and fitness. It
Yep.
sure is a lot of fun. I will say that.
I will say that I'm looking on iTunes here real fast, G, and some of our higher ranked episodes,
Uh-huh.
like some of the most popular, although I know it includes recent popularity, but ways to stay motivated through the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Gracie Humatai in Edwardsville, one of our
Yeah,
Glen Ed conversations. That was back in September, and that still is one of the more popular episodes.
sure.
And then talking
Shout
about
out
the
to Joe
4 areas.
Walters, Gracie
Yep.
Humaita.
Yep.
Respect
And
to my people
4
there.
areas of life in your operating system, how you operate in your thinking, as
Yeah.
well as some of the one that just launched a few episodes ago, how to eat 10,000 calories of Halloween candy and not lose your mind. So we've had some fun conversations, but it's been good, man. What are you looking forward to in the next 100 episodes?
What am I looking forward to? Continuing to find my voice as a podcaster because I've said this since the start that you can track the success of a podcast by how many followers it has, whether eventually it's monetizable, stuff like that. But also, I think of it like even if this podcast never goes anywhere,
Yeah,
I'm still developing a really useful skill set
sure.
and finding my voice in speaking to an audience in this format. And so, worst case scenario, the podcast ends up completely crashing and burning at episode 103 or whatever. Hey, I'm walking away from this a better speaker. And like that excites me. I know it excites you too, Dallas, because that is literally what you do. If you want to do a quick shout out about your upcoming podcast and what you do, like for a lot of our audience, like you guys are leaders of business and industry, like you're CrossFitters, you're competitive by nature. Chances are you're also competitive in your job and your work. If you want to learn your voice or get better at harnessing your voice and delivering your message, Dallas should probably be your guy. So
I'm excited. The new podcast called The Speaker's Experience is going to be launching in January of 23. It's gone through a few iterations in pre-production, and I've held it for a little bit because there wasn't quite full alignment in what my vision for the show was. I now have that thanks to working with one of my business coaches.
yes.
Cheers to that. And I'm going to be talking with business leaders, coaches, consultants, stand-up comics, politicians, pastors, anybody who has to speak for a living and has to speak to lead and learn to really communicate to connect with their crowd. I want to talk to them about how they develop their talks, biggest bombs on stages, successes, those moments where they felt the magic, and what we can do to be better communicators in every area of our life, not just business, but how we can be better communicators as parents, as spouses, as business leaders, to our bodies, to ourselves, all of those things. So the Speaker's Experience is going to be launching in January, and I'm super stoked about it.
I'm stoked about it too because, our content on this podcast is a lot about how to be a top performer in terms of your fitness, your health, your exercise, your nutrition. All of these things go together, but one of my favorite concepts, I think I probably picked this up from Tim Ferriss, is that a lot of times what it takes to be world class in something is really just being very, very, very good at two things and marrying them in a unique way. So if, for example, you're a fitness coach, but also very good at public speaking, that combination is very powerful.
Yeah.
Similarly, if you're an engineer or you're a project manager at Boeing, right? You have the skills, but if you can pair that with really good public speaking, because most people are freaking terrified of public speaking, they will avoid it like the plague. But if you have that very unique skill and you pair it with your abilities as an accountant,
Yep.
you're immediately in the top performers of that field because very few have both, right?
That's right.
And so I'm stoked to see how like your podcasts help the great operators of the world then marry a public speaking presentation skill set with that to become elite in what they do.
That's the idea. I'm convinced that your success in life is limited by your ability to communicate your expertise. So if you can master the art of the art and the science of communication, then you can take that to the next level. Like you said, marry those two things. And if your expertise can be communicated properly, you are in the upper tier.
For sure.
Yeah,
especially
so I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to. I'm reaching out to guests right now to try and start getting people on, and because I'm wanting to bring on some heavy hitters. I'm ready to have some of those fun, big conversations in that influencer thought leadership world. So that's gonna be fun.
Can't wait to hear it, man. But hey,
for the next 100 episodes of this, we're gonna keep swinging the bat, and we're gonna get on base more.
That's right. Our batting average keeps going up.
That's right, baby. And it's going to be fun. And the thing I think I'm looking forward to, G, in these next 100 episodes of the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast is more traction with the audience, more like connection with what they actually want to hear, as well as I've got my eye on a couple of big guests. I want to see some leaders in the fitness industry on this show as well, having conversations with our local community. So everybody, listen, thank you for the first 100 episodes. We look forward to the next 100 episodes with you. If you are interested in finding out more information about us, throw CrossFit Edwardsville into Google. And you can also check us out on all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok now, at CrossFit Edwardsville. You can read one of our hundreds of 5-star reviews on Google. When you are ready, though, go to our website, CrossFitEdwardsville.com. There is a great big button that says book a no sweat conversation. If you're ready to take the next step in your fitness journey to discover how you can look better, feel better, and perform better as an athlete in your life, then we want to have that conversation with you. And again, that's CrossFitEdwardsville.com. But until then, everybody, G, thank you for this. And thank you and looking forward to the next 100, baby.
Same. To our audience, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys had a good time with us, and we will see you in the next episode.